Well, hello everyone, and welcome to New Rocket's webinar. This is Extraordinary Mobile Experiences. This is the second in our series of webinars. The first in our series was talking about our portal solutions. Today we're going to be talking about our more mobile solutions, and next week we'll be talking about our intranet solutions. But again, today we welcome you, and we're going to go through a few samples of what can be done with mobile and help you understand the possibilities there. My name is Todd Basher, and I'm Vice President here at New Rocket. I have a long history in enterprise software. I wear many hats here at New Rocket. Before New Rocket, I was Director of Platform Product Management at ServiceNow. I also led a custom app solution consulting practice at ServiceNow, and I'm joined today by Nathan Firth.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Nathan Firth, founder and president here at New Rocket. And similar to Todd, prior to New Rocket, I was working at ServiceNow, where I was the team lead and architect over the Service Portal product. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. And New Rocket, really, our focus is on employee experience. This is what we do day in and day out. We've been in business about 4 years, and employee experience is what we do. And with that, we've created approximately about 70 portals at this point. And with mobile, definitely on the increase, this is something that we are been shifting into and been working on now for the past 6 months. So I'm really excited this morning to share some of what we've been doing in the mobile space.
Thanks, Nathan. We're going to start by just talking about some of New Rocket's capabilities so you understand what we do as a business and how we might be able to help. We break down things in 3 different areas. One is our application and solution delivery. And we've heard a lot of the same requirements, heard a lot of the same complaints from our clients over the years from what they're able to accomplish with ServiceNow. So we have taken that experience and turned it into a number of products. We'll be talking about our mobile product a little later today. But about 50% of our staff is dedicated to that solution delivery. The other 50%-ish is really dedicated to visual design. We have a whole group of UX and UI designers on staff that we deploy for our engagements to really focus on that user experience and really optimize that no matter what the solution is. And we're going to talk about how that can be very useful in the mobile space as we go through the presentation today. The other area where we focus is on the content itself. Whether you're talking about a portal or a mobile solution, it's really only as good as the content that you're surfacing. So we have a whole group of strategic services that we use to help you work on that content piece. And I'll get into details about this at the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what we do as a business. And then the other important thing to understand is the way we approach how we deliver a solution. We take a very systematic and user-centric approach, and it follows essentially 4 phases. The first one is when we're just exploring what it is we're trying to solve for. We're going to understand from you what metrics you're trying to influence, what goals you're trying to help your users accomplish. That may include some user research, which I'll get into toward the end. Of course, we're going to do requirements gathering, make sure we fully understand what we're trying to accomplish. And that provides input into the second phase, where we're going to visualize the solution. And that starts typically with low fidelity wireframes of the mobile interface, making sure that we understand how the user is going to navigate through, what functionality we're going to expose. After we iterate through that, we're going to turn on and layer on as much branding as we can into that mock-ups, so you understand exactly what it's going to look like, how it's going to function. And that provides 2 inputs into the next phase. One, it's an input for you to shop around and get people excited about what's going to be happening during that construction phase. And that is the other input, allowing our developers to understand, okay, what are they are supposed to build? And then we iterate through that with you, making sure that you have feedback to that construction phase. Toward the end, we're going to go through our internal QA process. We're going to help you prepare for the user acceptance testing. We're going to prepare documentation. And then that leads us into the transition where we work with you to perform that user acceptance testing, take whatever feedback comes through, incorporate that into the solution. We're going to do knowledge transfer with your team so you understand how it's going to be maintained and how it's going to work moving forward. We help you get that into production and provide that post-launch support. So that's our very systematic process. Again, very user-centered, a lot of feedback cycles in there to give you the best possible results. Now let's talk about the types of solutions that are available to you with the mobile. And as we know, more and more of the business is conducted over mobile interfaces. That's certainly the case with our private lives, and more the case with our work lives. So we want to, again, enable that truly extraordinary experience on the mobile device to really match the types of experiences people are getting on their desktop. It's important to understand what options you have available to you when it comes to mobile. And over the years, ServiceNow has had varying strategies when it comes to enabling access through the mobile device. The first one early on is referred to as ServiceNow Classic. And honestly, while it's not officially deprecated and you can still use it, we have clients that are still using it. It's not really our recommendation nor ServiceNow's recommendation to deploy new solutions on that. So I'm not going to talk much about that because it's really not recommended. What we are going to spend a lot of time on is ServiceNow's mobile applications. And their strategy really is to enable specific experiences for different types of users. But in general, when we talk about ServiceNow's mobile applications, they take a very ServiceNow approach, meaning it's all configuration driven. They're going to give you a few options with that configuration, and that's going to drive the user experience and the UI that you get. Technically, that's delivered in what ServiceNow calls applets. Those are sections of UI on the screen with predefined functionality. You're providing some configuration option, and ServiceNow is generating the interface. For the most part, this is constrained to authenticated users. And so they're going to expect that user to have a record within ServiceNow, authenticate before they're able to get going with the rest of the application. And for the most part, you're going to be using ServiceNow branding. There are a few opportunities to introduce your own branding into the solution, but for the most part, that's fairly limited. With the latest release in Orlando, you do have greater capabilities. It's a little bit more challenging to get. It involves some ServiceNow involvement in getting that packaged up. But for the most part, your branding options are a little limited. And then in general, you need to be on New York or later in order to take advantage of the new applications. I'm going to pause here. You may have some questions, and in case you haven't done so already, we have a Q&A channel. So post your question in there, and I'll take questions throughout the webinar today. So make sure that you get those in there so the moderator can ask me those questions. So I'm going to transition now and talk at a high level about New Rocket's native solution and how it differs from ServiceNow's solution. Whereas ServiceNow is taking that very configuration-driven approach, New Rocket Native is fully customizable. We are embracing every aspect of mobile development, so you don't really have restrictions in terms of the user experience that you can accomplish with the New Rocket Native app. We also support unauthenticated users, and in addition to authenticated users, of course, and then you have full control over the branding as well as publication into the public app store. So why did New Rocket create its own native solution? It was really to address those edge cases where ServiceNow solution was not sufficient. Things like supporting unauthenticated users, having complete control over the user experience and the branding, getting that easily into the public app store. So in those cases, New Rocket's native solution is our recommendation. For the vast majority of cases, we're going to recommend that you go with ServiceNow's mobile solution, and that's why we're going to concentrate a good portion of the discussion today on ServiceNow solutions. So I'll cover these in a little bit more depth as we go along here, but I did want to have you understand what your options are. All right, I see some questions up there, so why don't we take some of those right now?
Awesome. So first question, how does the authentication process work, the login? And can you do a demo later in this webinar?
So authentication supports whatever authentication method you're using on your ServiceNow instance. So essentially, if you have single sign-on, then the mobile app is going to adopt that. If you have local logins, it's going to adopt that. So when you're talking about the ServiceNow solution, or you're talking about a New Rocket native solution, the authentication process is going to be the same.
That's awesome. Thank you. And how do you talk with the instance from the mobile environment? Do you do it with a regular API REST call?
Yes, it is over REST, and it's going to be encrypted. So it's typical mobile to server communication methods.
All right, awesome. And once the app is complete, how do you push that app to mobile devices? How much time does the publishing process take?
So with ServiceNow Mobile, once they have the application installed on their device, then updates are pretty much immediate. You do have to refresh the page in order to see those configuration changes, but it's fairly immediate. Sometimes you may have to log out and log back in, but it's fairly immediate. With the New Rocket native solution, this is a build process because we're giving you complete control over the experience, and that is custom. Then there's going to be a deployment process and a build process involved with that. And that varies based on the certification process from either Apple or Android.
All right, that's awesome. And I'll take one more question here and then we can move on. What language or platform have you chose to build the native app on?
So we're, for our New Rocket native solution, we're using React Native.
All right, very good.
Any other questions?
So we do have one more question. Can you walk through the mobile development process / customization? How much time does it usually take and what are the phases?
Yeah, so let me cover that. Matt, if you can remind me to cover that when we go into the New Rocket native section, that'll be a little bit more relevant, and I may cover some of those things during the presentation.
Absolutely. And I'll save those questions for that portion of the webinar as well.
Okay, great. All right, so unless we have other critical ones, I thought I could jump into the ServiceNow demo. Would that work? All right. Okay, so just to, again, cover the ServiceNow strategy, they have chosen to have specific mobile applications for different types of personas. They have one for agents or fulfillers. They have another one for the general requester population within your company. And then finally, they have one for new hires and onboarding. And by doing that, they're really focusing and tailoring the experience for that particular user. And this may be different than the strategy you want to adopt, but by doing it this way, they are trying to give that really targeted experience for each one of those user types. And just as an overview, I'm going to go through some options with each one of those so you can see what's possible with the ServiceNow applications and really understand how far you can go with that particular solution. All right, So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to start sharing my mobile phone. And we're going to start with the agent application. Now, I've chosen to start with a field service application to help you understand, what's possible beyond what you typically find with the agent application. I think this is a good representation of where you can push the interface with ServiceNow Mobile. And I'm going to start with this map interface. As you might imagine, you have someone in the field, they need to work cases in various locations. So this is a great interface where as I change the focus of the ticket, it's going to refocus the map on where that location is. So you can imagine being able to understand where's the next work site, get over there in the most expedient way possible. Once I'm there, I can go through, get general information. I can view previous activity. I can review related information. So again, this is ServiceNow thinking through how the user is going to interact with the mobile device, not giving them every bit of functionality that they have with the ServiceNow interface, but really focusing on what they're going to need in the field. So for example, being able to check the availability of parts and seeing where those might be available. So these are the types of things that you have to think through as you're deploying the mobile solution for a particular type of user. What is it that they're going to be doing on the mobile device, and really focus and choose what you're going to leave in the desktop interface and what you're going to enable on the local device. So I'm going to switch now to another fulfiller persona where you again see that idea of really trimming down what's available on the mobile device. It's not about just shrinking the functionality to a different screen size. It's really about optimizing. So if we take, for example, that you have a project manager, they're walking between meetings, they want to get an update on a particular issue, a particular project, check the status, add some activity detail, check an issue, for example, make an update. Those are the types of things that they're going to want to do when they're walking between meetings and they don't want to open their laptop. They don't need a full Gantt chart or other capabilities. It's really about thinking through the jobs to be done and optimizing that for the mobile device. And then just really quickly, another nice capability on the fulfiller side is something like for a service desk agent being able to request time off. When you think about what a service desk agent is going to do, they're not going to be triaging a bunch of tickets from their mobile device. That's their day job, and that's what they're going to do from their desktop. But what they may do is want to come in here and see what shift they have, or request some time off. That's something that they could do when they get home and they remember, oh, I need to request that time off for the upcoming week. So this again is thinking through what types of things are going to be done on the mobile device versus the desktop. So again, I didn't want to concentrate too much on every little use case in here, but just show you some of the possibilities, different layouts that you can accomplish. Again, this is all pretty standard and driven through that configuration. I'm going to switch now to the requester view. And as you might imagine, there are a ton of options that we give requesters when it comes to the portal interface. Full access to the catalog, full access to all the knowledge categories. But again, do you want to surface that on the mobile device? What ServiceNow has done is they've made choices about what they're going to optimize here. For example, being able to join a walk-up queue. So they're walking in the morning, they remember they need some help, or as they're walking from their desk to the tech lounge, they want to get in line for support. They can do that very easily from their mobile device. So again, they've made the choice here not to give access to the full catalog, but instead just allow people to record their issue, make sure that they've contacted the service desk, get the ball rolling on getting support without having to search through a big menu tree and find the right category of issue to get submitted. Another thing you might imagine, they're walking around looking for a conference room. Oh, they see one that's open. Let's go ahead and book it and reserve that so we can meet in there in peace. So that's just a few things to get you thinking about, okay, well, how can the mobile experience be different than the desktop experience, and what are you trying to optimize? Now, the final example I want to go through is really around the onboarding experience. You can see they've taken time, they have an introductory video that sets the tone for the interaction. Once you orient people, you can give them a list of the things that need to happen. They have a nice interface here to request equipment, one of the onboarding tasks that need to be accomplished. From here, I can pick my laptop, pick my monitor, make that request, and then move on to the next step in the process, whether that's signing a document, reading some knowledge information. All of that's readily available in this interface. And again, this is a truly optimized experience, understanding what's available to me as a new hire, gently easing me into the organization. So with that, that gives you just a taste of the types of experiences you can have on the ServiceNow mobile device with that configuration option. And again, we're just encouraging you to think through what are the jobs to be done. That's part of what our design team can do, is help you make that determination and decide how do you want to scale down the experience onto that mobile device. All right, any questions that have come up?
Nothing related to the ServiceNow app.
Okay.
Oh, I just actually got one right here. Have you ever encountered a client that has need to open the apps directly from their mobile email client? For example, Outlook, Mail, Android Mail, through deep linking?
Yeah, so generally speaking, that's really how you format the link from the email, and then the device will take over if it understands where you're going. So that's really notification work mainly. So we don't have a lot of clients that are moving in that direction, but it is something that can be enabled through some notification scripts, email scripts that will show things conditionally. Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, so let me share my screen again, and we will go through.
All right. While you're doing that, Todd, I have one more that came up. Is there a way to remove the try with a demo account feature in the instant selection page of the Now mobile app?
I'm not aware of a way to do that. We can do some investigation, but I suspect that that's built into the application itself, and you're not able to modify that.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's turn our attention now to our new Rocket Native solutions. We have a few different cases that we've developed, but we're going to focus on where the sweet spot is for us with that 311 application. I did want to show you some of the interface possibilities with our native solution. And before I do that, just again to cover where we're different than the ServiceNow applications. First, the primary use case, or one of the primary use cases for New Rocket solution, is getting that application into the public app store. It is possible to get your ServiceNow application into a private app store, but as far as getting it into the public app store, you have some limited options there, and New Rocket Native is there to support you in case it's really vital for you to have that branded app into the public app store. You can imagine a university that wants students and faculty to download that from a public app store, or you have a commercial brand that you want to release an experience for your customers, for example. That's where our solution really shines, in addition to having that complete control over the functionality. So going beyond the UI interactions that ServiceNow is supporting, we allow that. And then if you do need that unauthenticated access that I'll be showing in just a minute, we have a way to enable that. All right, so what types of experiences have we developed on this? The first one is an HR experience. So again, we normally recommend the ServiceNow solution. In this case, if you really want to go beyond that and tailor that experience, then we have some different UI metaphors that we could enable in that particular case. For a multi-department application where you did want to expose more of what you would traditionally have on the portal, then you can do that. In this case, we treat each department almost as its own entry page. So at the top, as you swipe through the departments, then the lower half of the page would shift the content. So you would see the categories related to HR or the categories related to technology based on where the focus was. And then the app that I'm going to demonstrate live here in just a moment is our 311 application. So you can imagine a local government wanting its citizens to be able to report a pothole or graffiti and do that without having a relationship with the ServiceNow instance, having that unauthenticated access. Thank you. And so this is really where the sweet spot is for our solution, and that's why we're going to focus on it today. So with that, let me share my screen. Let me stop this. And oops. Back over here. Okay. So with our new Rocket native solution, this is our 311 application. And you can imagine, again, a local government wanting to deploy news, local events to its residents, making sure that they're aware of what's going on. We could even tie this into an existing API for news or events and have that directly integrated. But for the most part, all the information that you're seeing here is taken from a ServiceNow instance. And in fact, we can report a new issue here. So let's say that we wanted to report an issue with a broken pipe. So I was walking along and I found an issue here. I'll just take a photo of that. I'll use that photo and I'll just type a description here. Get that submitted. And now this has been sent over to our ServiceNow instance for it to be triaged by an agent. I can then explore various issues in my area. So let's say I want to see if someone else reported that graffiti I saw around the corner, information about what's reported in my area. I can get a nice summary of what's going on, view information about that pothole, see if it's being worked. So all of that is readily available through the interface. And of course, we can expand on the types of things that are accessible through this. This was really just a proof of concept to show what's possible and to demonstrate how we can use the ServiceNow APIs and still enable things like unauthenticated access and full branding. So that was a really quick introduction to our mobile native solution. So I'll take some other questions related to our mobile app.
All right, awesome. So like I mentioned before, can you kind of walk through the mobile development process, such as customization, and how much time does it usually take, and what are the phases that come along with that?
Yeah, great. So we're going to follow that same process that I talked about earlier on, where we're going to meet with you, really understand what you're trying to accomplish with your mobile solution. We're going to go through that visual design process, make sure that everyone understands how the app needs to look and work. then we'll go through a development phase. So when you're talking about doing native mobile development outside of the ServiceNow framework, it is going to be a little bit more involved because we're following much more traditional development processes. So again, this is the edge case where you want that complete control over the user experience and the branding. So we're going to go through traditional development processes to get that developed and then certified for deployment into the public app stores.
All right, awesome. And what are some of the limitations that you've run into with ServiceNow or ServiceNow's mobile solution, and how does the New Rocket mobile app kind of remedy that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that we hear from clients is just around the branding, being able to get exactly the look and feel that they're going for, have that match their portal. Those are really common questions that we get up front. And that's when we have to set the expectation that we have limited control. We can adjust things potentially like the splash screen, general colors, and thematic elements. But beyond that, it's pretty limited. The other thing that we run into most often is around conditional access to various UI elements. Or if we want a particular interaction where certain sections on the page are conditional and determining where that's going to go. We've run into some limitations with what we wanted to design versus what is supported through the standard configuration. So for the most part, we can get the experience that that folks want on the ServiceNow mobile, but we may have to compromise what the ideal experience would be.
All right, very cool. And I believe this was already demonstrated, but the New Rocket native app supports geolocation for all types of records, correct?
Yeah. So we can certainly enable that. In some cases, we may have to do some additional work on the back end to fully support that, but we can tap into any of the device APIs, any of the device capabilities, and that's one of the advantages that we have by going fully native.
All right, awesome. And then how do you handle push notifications from ServiceNow to your native app?
That's the great news. Whether you're talking about the ServiceNow native or the New Rocket native, the fact that you have the device, the app on the device, that enables the push notification. So once you get the push notification technically set up within the ServiceNow instance, it's going to work very well getting those notifications to the user, whether you're talking about the ServiceNow app or the New Rocket app.
All right, awesome. And then how have you handled the mobile app with multiple departments?
Yeah, so that's honestly one of the more challenging areas with the ServiceNow mobile app. One approach is each department gets its own tab, and that gets you kind of in the sandbox, and it's very isolated to that department's categories and knowledge and whatever types of interactions you're trying to enable on the mobile device. We've tried various ways to get a little bit more sophisticated. Another strategy is to treat the content more holistically and not have so much separation between the departments. So you can do that in very targeted ways by optimizing for specific experiences that relate to the various departments. So another way of thinking about that is saying, instead of the user saying, oh, I need support from Department 1 or Department 2, it's more about, oh, I'm trying to accomplish this specific task, and there's a UI affordance on the page that allows me to do that. And behind the scenes, we get that routed to the right place. So there are a few things that we can do in that area. Typically, that's going to come out in the design cycle where we really adjust what we're doing on the mobile device to optimize for those specific experiences.
Great. And then what's the best way to narrow down what should be available on mobile versus desktop?
That's a great question. The idea is to think through how people are going to use their mobile device. When are they going to use it? Are they going to use it between meetings? Are they going to use it at home? Are they going to use it on the subway when, people start using that again? So that's thinking through when they're going to use it, why they're using it, and then optimizing for that, making the hard choice of, I don't want to expose everything. What are those common things? Oftentimes we're going to use data analysis to determine what are the most popular things. Typically, we're going to surface that on the portal, either through a popular section or a suggested items section. And taking that same set of information, you can pull those common activities onto the mobile and then have almost like an escape hatch, a generic way to get support or get information. Also thinking through the types of interactions that you want to have. You don't want to take an order guide that typically takes 15 minutes on the desktop and expect people to do that on their mobile device. They're just not going to have the patience to do that. But you can take simpler forms that are quicker to fill out and put those on the mobile device. They may want to consume information, which is a very common activity for mobile devices in general. So getting quick answers, looking up something as a reference very quickly without having to, find that on your desktop. Those are the types of things that we're looking for in the design phase to make determinations of what we want to limit and put on that mobile interface.
All right, that's awesome. And then final question here. So in terms of the New Rocket native mobile app, what are some of the features that you find most interesting or even excited about in regards to the ServiceNow ecosystem?
So what are we most excited about with mobile? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah. Just there are so many capabilities that mobile devices are enabling these days with the device APIs. Really being able to tap into those and facilitate the interaction a little bit better. Obviously, using the maps and the geolocation is kind of table stakes these days, but going beyond that and really marrying the AI capabilities with the device capabilities, voice to text and text to voice and those types of things, that's a really powerful idea to make people more efficient. I would also say we're in pretty close contact with ServiceNow's mobile development team and exchanging information about what we're hearing, and they're definitely making a long-term investment in mobile. So the types of improvements that you've seen over time from release to release, that's going to continue. They are looking for ways to make not just the mobile experience better, but also the development experience better. And if you've done any ServiceNow mobile development, it's not the easiest thing to get through. There's a lot of new concepts and terminology to understand, a lot of configuration to get into the system. So they're going to continue to evolve that, and that's very exciting.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we'll finish up here. Let me grab my slides. Okay, so let's take a little closer look about our capabilities. Of course, we spend a lot of our time doing portal work, and more we're being asked to deploy ServiceNow mobile solutions. So that's really what prompted us to do this, is to get more information out there about what is possible to do from a mobile experience standpoint. And as I mentioned, in addition to our native product, we have a number of products that we've developed to facilitate the development of the service portal. Things like our Rocket Fuel system, which is a bundle of widgets that is used to enhance the overall usability of the portal, make it faster to deploy and easier to brand, those types of things. We combine those Rocket Fuel widgets with ServiceNow widgets in our portal accelerator that we call Launchpad. This is a great way to enable a better portal experience very quickly. And then for those of you who need to translate your solutions, we have a translation assistant that takes the information that can be translated in ServiceNow and makes that process a lot easier. From a visual design standpoint, I talked about going through that low fidelity wireframe into the high fidelity mockups, but I didn't mention that one of the results of that is a clickable prototype. So being able to really get a feel for how the navigation works and how the user is going to navigate through their mobile experience is very compelling, and it's easier to communicate that to other stakeholders within the business and for us to get feedback in that cycle. And then from a consulting and strategy standpoint, again, working with you, one of the really common complaints that we get is that the catalog is too difficult to navigate. Users are complaining. How can we fix that? And it's even more critical on a mobile device, being able to optimize that experience. So we spend a lot of time early on in our engagements to work with our clients to optimize the taxonomy, both on the catalog side as well as the knowledge side. I also mentioned user research. So in case you don't know what people are going to use their mobile devices for, or you need help determining, where are the limitations that you're going to run into on that mobile device, this is where some, at least qualitative research is going to work great. We often do interviews, focus groups, key stakeholders, key user types to understand how they're going to be using the mobile devices. Then if necessary, we can do quantitative research to further test that with a broader audience and really know that we're on the right track. And then, of course, you want to track your investment and make that continual improvement. And that's where analytics come in. ServiceNow in the latest release made a huge investment in mobile analytics, and that makes it so much easier to track how people are using it, where you can make improvements, and we can complement that with things that are happening on the portal side with things like Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics. So lots of possibilities there, and these services are really meant to initially level up your game on the mobile side and then give you long-term visibility and advantage to the process. All right, we can take any other questions that have come up.
Awesome. Okay, so this question is, for forms that aren't exposed to the mobile app, such as a complex order guide, what do you publish within mobile so that the user knows that something exists, but it's just not available in mobile?
Well, first, you have to ask yourself, is it necessary to expose anything in that case? Why are they looking for that in their mobile interface? If they don't see it in mobile, but they have experienced that particular thing on the desktop interface, then they'll just assume it's not available. In those cases where it's critical that they see it and they have some reference to it, you could use a content item to route them. You do have the possibility of also using a content item to embed a web view of that order guide. But again, you have to ask yourself, is that going to provide the best experience? And if it's critical that it is available on the mobile device, what can you do to optimize that in the mobile interface to make it a little bit easier to complete that particular task? So a lot of that is, situational, and we would have to evaluate your options there. But the first question we would ask is it truly necessary for it to be on the mobile device? And if not, just avoiding that or giving them another way of getting support in that area, either through a generic request or through a different contact channel. Those are also possibilities that we would probably explore with you.
All right, very cool. And then can ServiceNow admins still build applets and expose them to the New Rocket mobile app the same way they would the agent app?
So we are exploring that idea of taking some configuration that exists on the native mobile app and seeing how that can be brought into the native mobile. But again, the use case for New Rocket Native is for that fully custom experience. So we're still in the exploratory phases of that, but typically we're going to want a richer interaction, and therefore it's going to be more custom development.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate your attendance and participation today. Thanks for all the great questions. We are going to send a follow-up email with a link to the recording as well as information. If you'd like to meet with us to discuss your specific project and what we can help with, then please schedule a meeting with us. That will also be included in the email. So we really look forward to talking with you, and happy portaling. Have a great day.